In January 2016, Rogers Communications announced that it will cut 200 media jobs, and Post Media also announced that it will be cutting at least 90 editorial jobs. Yes, it's a tough market as Canadian media outlets are laying off staff, mainly due to sliding advertising and the migration of audiences online, amongst other factors. Obviously, we've all read or witnessed and experienced a variety of shifts in business services and sectors from retail to finance to transportation and to media and advertising. They've all been, quote, disrupted by innovation, unquote. Welcome to Conversations with Garmamie, episode 39. In this episode, we'll speak to Hal Doran about the ever-changing landscape of the media economy, along with the current trends and issues in social media. How are you doing today, Hal?
I'm doing great. We're out here in this beautiful outdoor cafe in beautiful downtown Westboro, Ottawa's trendiest neighborhood.
Hal Doran is a communications professional with over 25 years' experience in the field of media and communications. Job cuts and layoffs are common in any sector, dealing with a challenging economy. With all the challenges and quote-unquote disruptions in other cultural industries over the last decade plus, didn't big media, TV, newspaper executives and decision makers see this coming? Do you think, did they think their traditional business model would somehow generate profit?
I guess people really were living in the past for up to the last 10 years until you had your Craigslist and Kijiji and Google ads and all that kind of thing to cut into the bottom line of classified ads, which paid for a lot of what it took to keep certainly newspapers going. And in terms of TV and radio, local ads now on TV are very, very small. You can watch the supper hour show and might see a couple of local ads. They used to have here in Ottawa at CJOH, the CTV station, they had 30, 40 people working in the ad department to make ads, to sell ads. Now the ads are all produced by little local companies and they're rolled out of the control room at Master Control in Toronto. Some local radio still sells some ads, but that whole idea that the ad model where individuals can make small ads, where companies can advertise on social media and on the internet, they didn't think about it till it was already too late. None of those companies really said, well, why don't we buy a company like or set up a company like Kijiji? It was already gone. So now they still make some money, but it's not just a question of traditional media making money. They're all part of big corporations. There's maybe a dozen companies in Canada that control 90% of all media, and they need to make 20%, 30%, or whatever they need for their stockholders. It's not a question of making 5% profit. You've got to make a large amount of profit. And the ability to sustain news gathering, to sustain creating programming, is really not there anymore. The bottom has fallen out, and the solution really has been to just cut back and consolidate, to shut down, as we had with Post Media and Sun, newspapers, to consolidate newsrooms, to consolidate ownerships of radio stations and TV stations, and still, even with that economy of scale, so you don't need 40 people in the ad department, you need 50 people in Toronto to sell for all of Canada, it's still not a paying proposition.
What needs to be done to save traditional media outlets in this country, and are they worth saving?
Well, I think yes, until you've got a transition to a completely new kind of media environment, whether it's the recycling places like BuzzFeed or Huffington Post or any other so-called new media place you can think of. 90% of what they do is recycling information from the traditional media, whether it's bigger newspapers or bigger broadcasting networks, whatever. Until they're totally replaced by some other model, which could be, well, we've got now the Minister of Heritage proposing a complete review of everything in Canadian communications, media, culture, you name it. Content, everything's on the table. Could you have something like National Public Radio or public broadcasting, PBS TV, which is much more supported by local donations and by local underwriting? Some people have said for years, get all the ads off CBC TV, increase the subsidy for it, and maybe also look at, your TVO model, models where people actually donate according to their belief in what you're getting out of the service. So a lot more crowdsourcing. You've got some interesting entities like Canada Land, the podcast, which covers media, or even if you look at something like Frank Magazine, which now is pretty much subscription-based online, and they're surviving and growing by a combination of crowdsourcing and internet advertising that's linked to their audiences. But until you've got places that can actually spend money to cover City Hall, places that can cover the federal government, can cover communities where it's more than 5 bloggers, I think you need a transition from traditional media to future media, and we're not there yet.
Now, what career advice would you give to, say, a veteran journalist or video production professional, be it a camera operator, so on, who's just been laid off? What career advice would you give these individuals?
If you want to stay in journalism, broadcasting, media, then if you haven't already done so, learn a bunch of new skills. If you don't understand how online media works, if you're not able to take a still picture, make a video, edit a video, know how to post videos on a blog, on Instagram, don't understand the concept of how to make a podcast, or either audio or video, then your chances of being employed in the environment or starting your own enterprise are pretty limited. So maybe you do want to go back to school and take that cooking course or that gardening course or whatever, and just do a complete career change. Because if you don't have the digital skills and the business sense, really, I'd say take some business courses. Learn how to run your own business, because your choice is either being useful in the new media environment or creating your own new media environment.
So that was for the veteran journalists / video production professionals. What career advice would you give someone, a journalist or a producer with 10 years experience in the field?
If you're still working, that's exactly the same advice. If you don't already know that stuff, and if you're still working now, you probably do. I can look around at bylines, and I can see, people that have been at Canadian Press for 20 years. A guy called Colin Perkel, reporter, probably been there for 30 years, and with the recent Attawapiskat situation, Colin Perkel shoots a 5-minute video and puts it online through the Canadian Press system. It's picked up by every newspaper and TV outlet right across the country, and that's somebody that started out back when they were still using typewriters and teletypes to get the news in Canadian Press. So if you're around now and you aren't learning that on the job, because presumably Canadian Press, to use that example, trained Colin Perkel how to do it, then go upgrade your skills. Exactly the same advice, whether you're entering midlife or about to be laid off or taking an early pension. If you want to stay in the trade, learn what you need to know to do the business today.
And say, what career advice would you give to any recent journalist or TV broadcasting graduates straight out of school? What advice?
Think really broadly. Do not expect to have a career. I think most millennials, don't expect to have a career with one organization for the rest of their lives. Get your foot in the door somewhere. Whether it's traditional media, a new startup, some kind of media related, maybe it's doing community advertising on a blog. Just get your foot in the door doing something. Maybe get together if you can't find a job and create your own job. More and more people are developing podcasts. Podcasts are huge. A lot of it is powered by existing news organizations that have an audio background, whether it's National Public Radio or CBC or community college radio. But people are making money at it. You put it up on iTunes. Every podcast I listen to now that's got any kind of dimension to it, people say, please like us on iTunes because we get rated. Please tell your friends about where we are on YouTube. So don't worry too much about getting enough money to do more than pay your rent and be able to practice your craft. And think broadly. And maybe if you don't have any business skills or marketing skills, learn that either online or take some courses, community college, because more and more people are going to be responsible not only for creating their own media, but selling it.
We're going to move on to the theme of social media, in particular current trends in social media. Live streaming video is considered to be the next big thing in social media marketing, thanks to apps like Periscope and Meerkat, which took the internet by storm last year in 2015. Question is, what are your thoughts on social media live stream video? Why are marketers calling it the next big thing?
Well, there's always a next big thing on the internet or in the media. And certainly when streaming video finally got adopted by big platforms like Facebook and the integration of Periscope with Twitter, it began to take off. We've had different kinds of, streaming around for years. 15 years ago we had Real Player, Windows Media, QuickTime. Then we had things like Tout, which nobody remembers, but that was an early version of what became Vine. We've got Google Hangouts. You mentioned Meerkat. But the ability for most of those things to become adopted was fairly small. They were niche. Until recently, you could go and get a tweet saying, watch this on Periscope. And you'd click on it, and it would say, download the Periscope app. It'll only take a few minutes. How many people are going to do that? Now, you're able to have video actually start when it's rolling when you scroll past that tweet. It's rolling when you scroll past that posting on your Facebook feed. But with all of these things, the stuff that will be successful will have to have some sort of professional quality to it, whether it's high quality, news quality video, or whether it's video that's well produced but is in the trend of what's working now on video. You've got people like Cutie Pie, 40 million viewers, with this guy who comes from Sweden and lives in England and does really well-produced videos about live gaming and gaming. It works because he's a good presenter, and it's not just somebody holding up a cell phone. It's well-produced video. You've got Lily Singh in Toronto, Superwoman, 8 million people watching her stuff. She started in a basement 4 years ago, and now she's doing world tours with her comedy, all based on her abilities on YouTube. But 90% of streaming video that people will be doing will be animated selfies. How many people are paying money to watch other people's selfies? Well, even if you're Justin Trudeau, nobody's really paying money for it. So just because you got 15 seconds of motion that only your bros or your sisters want to watch, I don't think it's a commercial media proposition.
Right. Now, how would the public sector use live streaming video?
Well, there's a number of possibilities, and really you can see RCMP has already got a very high video presence, whether it's and other police services, whether it's Amber Alerts, whether it's service announcements, news conferences. A lot of news conferences are live streamed. Crisis communications. There's some sort of disaster, and you need to reach people, and the broadcast stations are off the air. Plus, it's good for you're doing a training session and you want to narrowcast that, and you're in 5 locations. And somebody holds up the cell phone and pushes that out. And recruiting, how does this job work? Here's somebody on the job. Some of these are crossovers that would work well in commercial situations or educational situations, but really that communicating to the general public when something has happened, whether it's a bomb scare or a forest fire, or you have to evacuate because of a flood. Everybody's got their cell phones. The one weak link there is how many cell phone towers have emergency generators to keep them powered when the power goes out. Mm-hmm. But certainly, just as the last vestige of live television is the live event newscast or the live sportscast, live events that aren't going to be covered on the news, because how many news conferences are covered live? Well, in between the two news channels on cable, maybe 1 in 100 that a government entity does. So there's the ability to do that kind of thing. If it's not live and immediate, who cares? Whether it's 90% of what people actually watch of streaming is archived. You do your Periscope, it's archived for 24 hours. You do your Facebook and you put it up on YouTube. 90% of what people will see is not live. But if you do it live and archive it, then you're getting that traction. But just because it's live, it's very momentary. There are places, and as I say, emergency communications, crisis communication, stuff that the media won't cover live, those areas.
Now, how do you think social commerce will impact social media and its users and potential consumers?
Everything can be monetized and is being monetized. We're mentioning Cutie Pie before. This is a guy with the most popular YouTube site in the world. 40 million subscribers to his channel. He's just crossed over 1 billion views. He's reported to make between $7 and $12 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, $7 to $12 million a year. But let's put that in perspective, because we were asking about how this can be commercialized, the potential for making money on live video and video on social media. So 40 million people is 1/4 of the audience, worldwide audience, of the Super Bowl. Last Super Bowl was seen by 160 million people, according to rounded up statistics. The average ad in a Super Bowl is $5 million for 30 seconds. There was over an hour of advertising in the average Super Bowl. So in a minute and a half tops, Super Bowl, with only 4 times the audience, makes what he makes in a year. So the ability to monetize, even though it sounds great, here's a guy with, sitting in his bedroom doing some cool stuff on a YouTube channel. He's making $12 million a year. Somebody that reaches 40 million people and has that audience influence should be making 20 or 30 times that much if you were a commercial enterprise. So It sounds cool. It sounds like a lot of money, but if in a commercial world, if you could guarantee a worldwide audience of 40 million people, you'd be making a hell of a lot more than he is.
From a content point of view, from a content development point of view, how do smartphones and device? Let me restart that. From a content development point of view, how do smartphones and devices change the content development and production of social media and web content? With this mobile-first approach, do you think PCs and laptops will eventually become less relevant?
I think everything will have its place according to functionality. It's interesting that the latest iPad was a 12-inch iPad that potentially came integrated with a small keyboard, right? Bluetooth keyboard, because people want to type. The Microsoft Surface is incredibly popular with university students and college students. Why? Because most of those institutions are still in a Microsoft-based kind of platform. So you can go get your touch tablet, Surface. You can plug in your little keyboard. You've got your keyboard if you want to write your notes, and it's all integrated with the Microsoft Office stuff that your university or college is running. So if I want to sit and type, I probably want to use two fingers. Maybe I want to use two hands if I'm a real typist. And if I want to do stuff in a crowded environment, I want to use a small mobile device that has some kind of built-in keypad, or more and more, Garmamie, when I'm in a bus and I want to send a text on my iPhone, I use speech to text. I just dictate it because the dictating qualities are super. I can dictate a 5-sentence text in about as long as it takes to say it, correct a couple of little errors when I'm elbow to elbow with everybody else standing on the bus, and it would have taken me a minute to type that with a finger or even two thumbs. So I think the range of devices will continue to go to become smaller and more compact. What's the difference between an iPad Pro 12-inch with a Bluetooth keyboard and a traditional laptop? Well, probably 3 or 4 pounds, and probably a better battery life on the iPad and a better screen. So people will continue to use the kinds of devices that are as compact and as efficient as possible for the task at hand. Am I going to use a 12-inch iPad on a bus to send a text? No. Am I going to love to be able to take that home and do video editing on it on my dining room table? Yeah. Am I glad I don't have to go down and use the iMac, from 5 years ago that weighed a hell of a lot more to do that? Yeah. So I think mobility is not the key word. It's integrating the right kind of functionality for the right device, for the right task, in the right place.
Well, thank you very much for your time and your professional feedback on this. We hope to have you again in the future.
Well, great to talk to you, and it's nice to be able to do a podcast sitting out here in this nice little patio in downtown Westboro, the trendiest part of our nation's capital.
Have a good day.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Garmamie. For more information, visit garmamie.com. That's GARMAMIE.com. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube, Conversations with Garmamie.